Welcome to the program. We're going to do something a little special for this episode. We'll talk with Jay Barton. Jay is a dear friend of mine and is the outgoing general manager right here at the Newsplex in Charlottesville, Virginia. Jay, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
So glad you're here. You were already here, but
yeah, that's right.
Thanks for coming by.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me.
Where you work.
Yeah, I remember building this set. This is
indeed.
Nice.
You were the general manager 2012, beginning in 2012 until now,
right.
overseeing the Fox, ABC, and CBS affiliates here in Charlottesville.
Yeah.
And before you leave town in the next 48 hours,
right.
You were so gracious to accept my invitation to sit down and talk about journalism and television and Charlottesville. And thank you in advance for making some time for us.
Well, first, so I was saying to Coy, behind the scenes, we were talking, and I feel like this is sort of the ultimate act of self-aggrandizement. I've always felt like when I first got into television, I had a general manager who wanted me to be on TV more than anything. And what I wanted to do was be in charge of marketing and creative services, which is our term for any and all things that are artistic or designed, so building sets and making commercials. And I was kind of a frustrated Steven Spielberg sort of character.
Right,
like I want
right.
to make movies, but I really don't want to commit. So let's make commercials. That's nice. It's a So that's kind of where I came from, and my GM was always like, I want you to be on TV. And I said, if I'm going to be on TV, it's going to be like an SNL, Saturday Night Live sort of scenario. So in local television has a different place, and it's not for some person to have an ego and be pointed at themselves. It's supposed to be about the community, and that's just always the way I've felt about it. And so now when you invited me to do this, I literally almost said, you know what, Coy, no, because that's not appropriate. Like, I'm just a guy in the background. The people who matter are the people that you see when you watch CBS 19 News. They're the people who, behind the scenes right now, the greatest operations manager I've ever gotten to work with is directing our show. I mean, like these are the people who matter, and not me. And so, but then I thought, well, I can say things like that I just said.
What a good
on
opportunity
television.
to do
I
that.
can say it on television, and I can also talk about, we can talk about the things that are really keeping journalists up late at night.
Let's do that.
Yeah,
let's do that right
let's
now.
start there.
So from one journalist to another, as two
That's a
people
loose term.
Two people who've worked in media for a long time.
Right.
I want to get your thoughts about what crosses your mind when you see news stories like a political candidate body slamming a reporter to the ground because he doesn't like the question he's being asked. And then he wins a seat in Congress, the same candidate. And all the stories about fake news and a sitting president who got to office demonizing not just journalism, but demonizing reporters, people who actually do journalism.
Sure.
He said that journalists are the enemy of the state. They're our enemy.
Certainly that was the commentary. Is that attributed to Trump or to Bannon, Mr. Steve Bannon?
Fair enough.
Because it may have been Steve Bannon's comment, but I agree with you.
So what crosses your mind, Jay? When you see all this stuff going on?
Okay, so what an intensely hostile environment. So I'm fortunate to be from Charlottesville. So I grew up in the shadow of Monticello and all that Jefferson entails, and sort of the myth, not just the reality of Jefferson, which is extremely fascinating, but the myth of Jefferson, which is even more wonderful. And in a lot of ways, it's been nice to see us as a local community, as well as an American culture, start to look a little more critically at our founding fathers, not because they don't deserve to be respected, but because there is more nuance to every person's life. And I think that's
they were human beings.
They're human beings, and they did wrong. They happen to do a lot of right, and it's given us the chance to do this. I mean, so there's a lot of right that has come out of it. And everyone can Monday morning quarterback something that happened centuries ago. But anyways, coming from the perspective of Jefferson, I think about his concepts, which were endorsed by many of the other, sort of members of that Enlightenment generation, the Adamses and Franklins and so forth of our country, who believed in free thought, free expression. They believed that the act of saying something shouldn't be said or shouldn't be thought, especially shouldn't be thought, was an overreach that has been in place for 10,000 years, and maybe we should try not doing that for a while and see what happens. And then you have Madison put, there are many things that come out of the First Amendment, but Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion and restricting the freedom of the press, right? To paraphrase. And that concept being made somewhat sacred. I mean, I happen to be a person of faith in my personal life, but I believe that in a public life, my faith is big enough, my faith is secure enough that if someone disagrees with me, that is okay. In fact, I enjoy that they disagree with me because that makes it more interesting, like for us to live and discuss and debate and so forth. But anyway, getting back to these questions about, so here we go 240 some years later, we're having a discussion now that is around when someone leaks information to the press because they believe something is wrong, is that person a traitor? We're still parsing that with Edward Snowden as a great example. When someone asks a question I don't want to have asked, does that make them bad? That's kind of the binary that is being created. I can understand, if I put myself in the role of a Donald Trump, I can certainly understand that sense of isolation. I mean, you're surrounded by people, none of whom you are close to, none of whom you can talk to. And we've seen, I speculate that we see Donald Trump parsing data live, whether it's on Twitter or in a press conference. We've seen him kind of walk through concepts in ways that I think previous administrations would have chosen to spend time behind closed doors figuring out, okay, what's our message going to be? And this administration tends to be one that's more like, I'm trying to think of the phrase, but where you basically got competing ideas at the table. That's encouraged. That sort of dissension is encouraged, but we're just seeing it in front of us as well as behind closed doors, I guess. And so that's making it hard for us. I mean, right now, I guess this program initially will air at the end of the president's first long trip overseas.
Right, as he's coming back.
As he's coming back. And so this is something where I heard another person's insight, and they said, the administration probably feels pretty positive about the way things have gone overseas, where many of the other people who are playing a different game or have a longer view on some of these, some of the policy statements, what have you, see an administration that perhaps is going to have to walk back things that they've said or change course. What is
They're already doing it as
right.
we speak. His aides are trying to make sense of what he meant when he said Germany is, those Germans are bad people. It's
right.
Well, wait a minute. We didn't mean all Germans. We're just referring to trade policy. But there is the extent to which he is the dream president of Vladimir Putin. Everything he's doing to distance himself from NATO, to distance the U.S. from Germany. It's exactly what Vladimir Putin would dream that a U.S. president would do.
Right. Although I do tend to be also skeptical on the other side of massive conspiracy theories. In this case, is there reason potentially? And hence all the conflict of interest conversation. I think, when money is involved, I mean, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And I'm not making the statement that that's what's happening with our president or anyone else, but at the same time, you do need to ask those questions when you are presented with those situations.
Which is why the investigation, the FBI investigation, it's very appropriate that it looks into his business relationships and the business relations, the economic ties
the idea
between he and his
of
team and agents of the Kremlin.
Absolutely. I mean, like when we talk about, you and I have spoken a lot about a variety of different subjects, most of which I don't know much about. But when we talk about the way finance, the way economics drives decision making, I did not expect when a younger version of myself said, boy, I'd love to be the general manager of a TV station someday, that would be neat. I did not expect, I did not understand, and it was my youth and my naivete as well as just lack of knowledge and experience in general that I didn't understand how much money policy, even at a small level, influences the choices that are going to be made. And so when I see that and I know what I go through just being a part of one piece of a much larger company, but this piece locally we run ourselves locally.
It's a business.
It's a business,
it's
though,
a business.
and so we have
as much
to,
as you want
I want
journalism to be all about the ideals, the people paying for these cameras and these lights are running a business.
That's right, and the people paying for these cameras should be us. Those of us here in Charlottesville, working here in Charlottesville, the people who are, who are affected by the laws of the Commonwealth of Virginia, who are affected by choices that City Council or the Board of Supervisors in the various counties make. In the perfect expression of what our company has been trying to do, these stations are paying themselves. Like we are creating, we have a certain level of security and a certain level of efficiency because of scale, but each station individually is making a meaningful contribution to the community by employing people, by investing in the community, by doing business as much as possible with local businesses. I mean, all those things. And then when you say they pay for the cameras, and the lights and so forth, like theoretically the work of this team buys those products for us. That's the goal.
You have the community through advertisers that want to invest in that product.
Right, and then we reinvest, and the product is I use the term all the time, and I hate it because what we do is we take something, as we talk about journalism, and already I spent a bunch of time talking about Trump, and I have no idea what I'm talking about. But the President of the United States, to me, right now, the thing I'm taking away from it is lessons in leadership and management. And I personally, I don't really know about policy, but I can tell you it's not the way I want to manage my team of people.
Right.
So that is, to me, a really hard thing to watch as a proud American, as a person who believes in the promise of this country, not 200 years ago, but today and tomorrow. There is a promise that there is an American dream, all those things, and to see it being managed in a way that I think if this were The Apprentice, this person would not make it past the first couple of weeks of that contest. I just don't see the level of management competence that I would expect, and that really frustrates me. But at the same time, just as I didn't understand what it was like to be a general manager of a TV station, I certainly don't understand what it's like to be the president. There are many more things writing on
the
that.
body slam.
Okay, let's talk about the body slam, sure.
And in this light, you could write it off as whoever this guy is from this one of those rectangular states out there in the West. It's a fluke. He was just a fluke. He's got an anger problem. It's just about him. But you have to see what he did in the context of Republican politics, which demonizes reporters. So everybody's trying to one-up Trump. Everybody's trying to be the Trump in their own particular district.
This is a really interesting...
Or at least the GOP is.
So when this story first broke, I literally turned to my wife and read, this is the headline from CBS, because yes, I have CBS on my phone. Anyway, so the headline from CBS that was my pitch. Anyway, so
get the app.
Yeah, that's right. Get the app. Download it today. It's free. Anyway, I see this headline, and I literally turn to my wife and say, this happened, I think, and I don't even understand what I'm looking at. Right? These words don't make sense. I'm trying to think. And
the audio is horrific.
Yeah,
I mean, the guy asks a question about the CBO numbers on the Republican healthcare plan.
bill.
Like, hey, these numbers don't add up. The plan you guys are endorsing, it's going
to hurt people.
Millions of people will be left off of will be uninsured, and you can't pay for it, and costs are going to go up. And how could you support this? How do you square this? It's a question a journalist should ask. And he gets physically assaulted because of it. And there's witnesses in the room who watched it all happen.
So this is where I really don't know what the right answer is, but in thinking about it, I've come down on both sides. And I feel like I'm being super political about all of my answers, but when I think about Why does this gentleman decide to physically attack some other person, regardless of their role, regardless of their place? Because, like journalism, for instance, journalists, that's a choice that we've made. I say we loosely. We have excellent journalists here. I am not one of them. I just am near them. However, ethically, a person who is a journalist, they're not a doctor. They don't have a license. You know, they're not a police officer. They don't have a badge. This is a job or a
and they're not
career.
required to go get a master's degree in journalism.
Correct.
To get a camera and go out in the community.
Right. You don't even have to have a bachelor's. You just need to have the desire and the opportunity. And you know, the internet has created, for better or for worse, you know, the blogosphere and podcasting and so forth, which you don't have to have any credentials. You just have to be interesting. And there's something to that. I mean, like television is in this case, using television as the analog, it's an experience that is very it's passive for the viewer, in the sense that the viewer sits back and takes in the information, the experience of watching whatever's on the box. But it is a very active thing for what it does to your brain. Certain pieces of your brain turn off, other pieces turn way on, and for that reason, you know, we could talk about how people believe it's brainwashing.
But to circle back to the body slam.
You're
not going to make excuses for the guy.
No, I'm not going to make
excuse.
No, you shouldn't fight somebody. Like, there's no reason to fight a person who asks a reasonable question. At the same time, the journalist is not a special human in the sense of there's two people in the room. Any more than, frankly, the person running for Congress is not a special person. They're just a person who's made a set of choices that brought them to that point. Same for the journalist. In our country, we would hope we have a country of laws, a nation of laws that says, in general, there are no second-class citizens, and in general, you should feel safe walking around on the street. If a person, you know, the philosophy of why this is a problem is because the person who does the body slam, who incidentally has apologized for it, which I appreciate, at the very least, this person is not so out in left field that they don't understand that what they did was inappropriate.
Right. And he's being charged.
And he's being charged for it and so forth. And even if it's a consequence-based ethic, you know, hey, at the very least, you've got a person who has, you know, where there are other people on the national stage in politics who may not ever apologize, ever, for the things that they do, which are empirically provable to be wrong. So in this case, at least, we have a guy who's done that. But for him to think he has the license or the authority, you know, like my rights end generally where yours begin, right? And I would say my right to my person, you can get in my face, you can scream at me, but the moment that you grab me and hurt me, you have absolutely abridged my law, my rights.
And the reporter didn't touch him.
Exactly. So you know,
a microphone
there may
like
be some other things going on. I liked your point about context, though. You know, the conversation nationally.
To me, that's the issue.
Right. The conversation nationally.
This isn't a fluke.
Right.
We're not
talking about one-off things.
Really embracing the whole zeitgeist of today's Republican Party.
Yeah, and
which the base right, they want to see this. Not all of them, but a lot of them want to see reporters attacked, the left attacked, and they don't care if it's a lie or if it's truth.
Yeah.
They want to see the left kicked in the teeth. They want to.
Well, I mean, and you know, I heard a great piece.
And there are many. I should say, there's many on the left who feel the same about the.
Oh,
absolutely,
absolutely. I mean, because I'm not anti-Republican. If anything, I would love to see a philosophically strong Republican Party. Would be just delightful to see. And you know, we all look back at the past and we forget the stuff that drove us crazy in 1980, and we forget the stuff that made us nuts in '76 and all that. But a philosophically strong Democratic and Republican Party would be better for our country. The biggest problem
I totally agree.
The biggest problem I see.
Where are the Eisenhower Republicans?
Yeah,
that's what I want to see.
Right.
What happened to the party of Eisenhower?
Look, we're talking about.
We need you at the table. This country needs that traditional conservatism at the table, because America has been defined by that kind of struggle. Yeah. It's that divide that has always united us since the very beginning. You know, Jefferson versus Hamilton.
Right.
But what we're seeing today is something that's closer to the 1850s, perhaps, when that was a regional conflict. Today it's a real ideological conflict.
Yeah, where you want to deal. Yeah, you want to deal with like a bleeding Kansas type of problem.
So then, where does news come into that?
So
where does the day-to-day grind of people going out and writing about and getting video footage and talking to people in their community, especially with local news, where do we fit into that?
Okay, so I think real easily, it's one thing to talk about the body slam and maybe contextually how there is a lot of animosity one side to the other, whether it's Republican versus candidate, or Republican versus reporter, Democrat versus reporter, whatever. I mean, just in general, the thing that I don't like about political parties, and we'll come to journalism in a second, in our current environment, the political party on both sides is just absolutely, as a much smarter person than me used to say in my life, political parties only have one purpose, and that is to win elections. It's not to protect, Democrats aren't protecting the little guy any more than Republicans are really protecting the rich. That's not their goal. Their goal is to win elections. And they have a way to do that, and that way is to galvanize a base. And they know that there's 30,
play to certain voters' interests.
We're going to play to those interests, and we have a playbook, and we all talk about it, and it's old news. We're going to be if I'm on the right, I'm going to be super conservative until the general, then I'll move to be more moderate.
Right.
I'll win over a few, whatever. In this case, the playbook was really excellently executed because they played the Electoral College game, not the I like you game,
right,
which is really hard for Hillary Clinton anyway, despite the fact she may be the most qualified human being ever to run for. I mean, that's an overstatement, but you know what I mean. She's certainly in the last
qualifications.
Yeah, in the last couple of decades, in terms of what have you done? Have you been Secretary of State? Count on. I mean, there's 20 other presidents were Secretary of State first. That is a really good thing to have on your resume to become President of the United States. And yet, the likability factor was a killer for her.
And she won millions of more voters' support. She just didn't win the electoral college.
She just didn't win the electoral college.
She didn't win this 18th century board game.
Right. And love or hate the electoral college. Depending on what side you're on, you hate it today. You loved it, 18 years ago, but you hate it today. So that's why I don't really advocate changing the rules of the game. Primarily because it just depends on where you're sitting today as to whether or not you like the game.
So
that's
journalism.
Not making it. So bring it to journalism.
Yeah.
Okay. So journalism is in a place where. Using the microcosm of the body slam story, you have a reporter who's asking, at some level, an innocuous question or an appropriate question, a question of a skeptic, right? Like parents whose kids grow up to be reporters had a really hard life because those kids are asking skeptical questions all the time. It's just the way you're built, and at the same time, that is what. If the cost of freedom is constant vigilance, I know I've misquoted that, but if that's the price, the only way to be vigilant is to ask incisive, skeptical questions. So when anyone is in the public sphere and they are asked a hard question, they kind of have to say, I've signed up for that. In my opinion. And our body of law tends to agree with that, with the different levels of privacy.
You can't say that political candidate shouldn't have expected the question. As a matter of fact, in his answer, there was the implication, I know that question, we'll have to talk to him about it, I'll need to get more information or whatever. And, and the reporter was insistent. Not demanding an answer, but asked it again. Say, no, I'd really like your thoughts on this.
Well, I think journalism in this case, he's like, I really want you to give your thoughts. Now, a reasonable person can say, I'm not going to do that, and the improv is over, the interview is over, right? Yeah. But journalism today, I think one of the big fears, local, national, international journalism, is that questions by their nature have a bias to them, all right? And in a very polarized environment, one that we've even seen locally, let's take Lee Statue, for instance. There are certain people to whom you can ask a question and they will assume you've just made a statement.
Right.
I'm really asking a question because this is the question I've got to ask if I'm the journalist. But the person on the other side might hear that question and they don't hear a question mark, they hear a period. They hear you saying intrinsically,
advocacy.
I'm advocating for one side or the other.
Agenda. You're with them. You're not with me.
And the fact of the matter is, every single person watching this show, you and I being in this show, like you and I have been on the same side of different conversations. We've been on opposite sides of different conversations behind the scenes, And we've had that right because as private citizens you have that. When you're in the public space or when you're participating in something that is public, whether it's a public assembly like a political rally, or you're out at the statue saying pro or against, pro or con to the statue, you have sort of inserted yourself into a public area where other members of the public who may decide to be journalists with their lives can then ask you a question, and you've got the right to say no. But if you decide to answer, you've bought into a social contract, right? And that social contract is, I'm going to tell the truth, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to give you my thoughts and all that stuff. And if you're not up for that, you can say no and walk away.
I think one of the ideals of journalism is in the heart of that Jefferson quote, where he says something to the effect that free government is founded in jealousy, not in confidence. To me, that's it. It's the role of a citizen, especially a citizen who happens to work as a journalist. It's their responsibility. It's what you're supposed to do, is to be jealous of any power that we temporarily give to other citizens.
That's very old. That's a very Old Testament use of the word jealous too, which I like. But it is
and therefore that jealousy, it demands that you be suspicious. You're suspicious of power, and ask those critical, suspicious questions. Why are you doing this? Why did you vote for that? Why do you think this? Regardless of what party they're in. Right. Just to be demanding that they think critically about what they're doing. And because share that information with the public.
And there's so many times where, poor Marie Antoinette, who will be remembered by history for let them eat cake, right? And we take that to mean one thing because cake is this delicious sweet treat. She was really being condescending back in the day, back in France, when she said let them eat cake, because cake at that time meant a very low form of bread that was just basic. If you want to stay alive, you could eat that.
They could survive on that kind of bread. Yeah.
Right, let them eat cake. So I use that because France also, from the founding of our country, is such a friend to our country, and then somehow not as much. I don't know, maybe it's idealistic. I don't know what the differences have been, because I haven't studied that as much, but just thinking about how, that ours is a culture that sort of celebrates the individual. It celebrates the idea of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps.
Personal responsibility. Absolutely.
And so a journalist questions those things. And so some of the time the journalist is doing the right thing. Mr. Nixon, what was your involvement with the Watergate break-in? Okay, so that's a journalist doing a job, and 75% of the country applauds, and you're doing Woodward and Bernstein are fighting for right. But when you're questioning something that is tangled up with the underpinnings of our belief in what America is, you sometimes you sometimes have a response that's very different. And so that's, I think, the very polarized air that our journalists are working in, some of whom are terrible journalists.
Yeah.
Let's be clear. They are jerks, they are foolish, they are in it for their own ego. They're misinformed for whatever reason. Maybe they have decided to be an advocate, or they call themselves a journalist when they are not. Because journalism, again, there's no licensure.
But there's also a lot of people out there who are doing great work.
And that's my point. This is just like one bad apple can spoil the barrel on one side. That's the biggest problem with the crisis in confidence, is the narrative is really good if I'm a person who wants to undermine the value of the core of journalists who inform our country. I can do that just very easily just by finding the one bad apple. Yeah, and there are those bad apples who have been celebrated, who have been elevated to a place where they
shouldn't be. Yeah,
they are household names.
So we've run out of time.
Are we done with the 30 minutes? Is that it? We're done.
We are. But I want to thank you, Jay.
It's the end.
For Charlottesville, we'll miss you. We'll miss your leadership and your energy and your excitement for this work. And the legacy that you have left with us here is very, very strong. And for so many people here on the staff and in the community, thank you very much for everything you've done.
That is really kind, and I don't deserve it. These people deserve it. And I mean, my only note is we got to fight for the things that we believe in. Even if we disagree, we can fight for those things, we can disagree about those things, and we can still be civil to each other. We can still be a country.
And disagree.
Yeah. And that's okay.
The website is mediaandcitizenship.org. Jay Barton, leaving Charlottesville after 5 years as the general manager here at the Newsplex. I'm Coy Barefoot. Have a terrific week, and y'all be good to each other.